Welcome to another episode of To Be Honest. Bangalore's startup ecosystem ranks 8th globally. It ranks first in India and first in South Asia. According to the global startup ecosystem map, there are about 1,066 startups in Bangalore itself, and they have raised together about $20 billion in this first half of the financial year 2022. It's a great time to be a startup in Bangalore, and I'm sure Ravi Shekhar would agree with me. It is he who we are meeting in today's episode. So let's go to him and find out more about his business and what his startup is trying to achieve.
We all have that pair of comfy sneakers we never get tired of wearing. Do you remember the last time you bought a new pair? And do you know if your sneakers are sustainable? Every year, thousands and thousands of pairs of sneakers are bought and sold all across the world. According to MIT News, a typical pair of running shoes generate 30 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions, equivalent to keeping a 100-watt light bulb on for 1 week. Sneaker productivity is exceptionally carbon intensive, accounting for 1.4% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, which is significant given that air travel is responsible for 2.5% of all emissions. The majority of sneakers are predominantly fabricated from plastic or plastic-like materials. All these petroleum-derived plastics produce alarming numbers of carbon dioxide. To further add, Americans throw away at least 300 million pairs of shoes every year. Combined with other countries, after completing their life cycle, most sneakers find their way to landfills across the world, having severe environmental impact. So, do we have a choice? Apparently, yes.
Welcome to another episode of To Be Honest, and today we have with us Ravi Shekhar. Like I was talking about in my intro earlier, the Bangalore startup ecosystem has been doing exceptionally well, and they have raised almost $20 billion in this first half of the financial year itself. And new ideas, new innovations, and a lot of wonderful things are happening out there. And Ravi is the founder of one such wonderful startup, which is using sustainability, which has sustainability at the core of what it's doing. And with a global footwear brand, which is using plant-based plant parts as material to create their footwear range. And that is something which attracted me to the idea, and I wanted to speak to Ravi. I have known him personally as well, so this conversation would be much more than just the official questions that I would be asking him. So let's go to Ravi and start this interview. Ravi, please introduce yourself and tell us about
Thank you, Malvika. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here.
We started, TerraX with just one goal in mind, to create something, to create a product that works for you and the planet. It's a very simple line, but it gives you just that we don't want to create anything that is going to have any adverse effect on the planet, right? Me and my team, we come from 6 different countries, and each and every one is, basically somebody who is and who has worked in fashion. So average experience in the team is roughly between 16 and 30 years. Me and my co-founder, we both come from India. We have Rob Major as head of design. Andrew Yang comes from China. He's head of materials and molds. Then we have Federico, who works in quality control. He's based in Portugal. So what we did and what we started off with was that why can't plant-based materials give you similar benefit as a polyester or a nylon-based sneaker, right? So it took us roughly 2 years and various association with different companies like Tata, Breschem. Then we had Lensing. IIT Chennai also chipped in with their ideas. So with the whole, time frame when we were working on prototypes, creating color samples, doing testing and trials, now we have a product which is ready for the market, and we are steering roughly between 90 and 100 days when the product will be hitting the market. We did had some, initial pre-order traction where roughly 1,700 customers from 18 different countries came and placed the orders. So, as you can see that this has a good potential to be a brand where, basically we bring in together science, we bring in together nature, and we combine everything together with human, ingenuity to create something which is good for you and the planet. So this is what we're trying to achieve.
So you mentioned before, as you began, that you have a team which comprises people from all across the world. That
Yeah, yeah.
itself is a testimony to the fact sorry, that sustainability has become such an important dialogue for us, not just for big conglomerates and big companies or small companies or startups, but even as individual customers, we are looking to do our bit in saving and protecting the planet. So I think this is like I have often mentioned when we speak, that's the reason I absolutely love the idea at a personal level of being able to contribute in our own as an individual customer. What are you doing? So these are small efforts which contribute to the bigger picture. So we will delve more into the business aspect of things, but first I want to start off from the start, which is your childhood and growing up years. So tell us a little about that. And the reason for asking that is a lot of people who are watching this would be watching it to look for inspiration, to look for role models, and sharing your personal aspect of your life. For us, for me as a host, it helps me capture that for my viewers. So that's the reason I
So
asked this
I
question.
was, born and brought up in a place called Madhubani. It's an area which is very near to Nepal border, and it is in Bihar. So right from my childhood days till my high school, I studied over there. Enjoyed a good time, in nature and natural surroundings. And you know time has changed since the time we started looking into nature and mother earth has a different perspective, right? If you move from such kind of places to cities like Delhi or Bangalore or to any other places, you'll see a big difference in people and how they utilize everyday raw materials and how they take care of planet. During our childhood days, it was all about how you sync yourself to nature, right? Sometimes power cuts,
Absolutely. Pretty
sometimes
much an integral
it's
part of our culture,
exactly. So
harmony with
it
nature.
absolutely. So the thing is, sometimes you have too much of heat, too much of cold. It rains for 2 months continuously in the monsoon days. So you get to know nature much more better in those surroundings. And you know, we're talking about somewhere between 1980s, late 1980s to early 1990s. So everything has changed a lot, and the change has been rapid, right? With everything being focused on making things easier, uh, the whole ecosystem kind of thing has you know uh, evolved and something which is more industrial, a little bit too much of focus being given to
So
customers profitability
can
in
I stop
XYZ.
you and ask this question?
Yeah, please, yeah,
That
go ahead. Yeah,
do
yeah.
you think that your growing up years and the way your life was back then, so close to nature, had a direct impact on what you chose to do later in life?
See, I mean, when we grew up in those ecosystem, right? You basically have some kind of understanding of what a bigger picture of life can be, right? You are constantly going through constraints, and you understand how you can make the best use of constraint and making the things much more better, right? So uh, you know, it actually gives you some kind of feeling and some kind of in-depth idea about what the bigger picture can be, right? After all, experiences in those early years, it matters a lot. You know a lot about, some smaller issues, some, common problems that everybody is facing. And while in, big tier one cities, you have all the solutions upfront. Coming from places like those, you still have those scarcity of what actual solutions can be, right? So yeah, it did had some kind of impact in what eventually, some kind of thought process can be, and it shapes you in some ways, right? So yeah, definitely yes.
So, when you came out of your this the place that you belong to, and you stepped out into the world, so what do you think were the primary challenges that you faced as a person trying to adjust in a society which is different from what they from where they have come from? So, was there any adjustment issues, or what would you like to share about that aspect?
Uh, See, the thing is, when I did my schooling in Madhubani, and then I came to Delhi, I enrolled myself in a footwear uh, manufacturing on technology institute. It's a Ministry of Commerce institute, FDDI. So the thing is, way back in 2003, 2003, 3 and 4, when basically you have to again give those exams to get into those colleges. uh, it was a complete different infrastructure, complete different resourcefulness. You are suddenly into an ecosystem where you have people coming in from all backgrounds, from all over the country, right? And then you have to basically create a space for yourself where people can understand and can know you, that that you are there to create something and create some kind of impact, right? So all those 3 years, it was a very good experience, because in my hometown days, even if you have your hand pump going wrong, you are the one who is correcting it, right? You have circuits, you have anything going wrong in the household, the mother's going to call your name, and you have to do something to correct it out, right? So those kind of incidents, it actually gets into your mind. And what then happens is, FDDI was a place where you get to know all about footwear manufacturing, designing, right? How to run a footwear factory, how to do line balancing, how to manufacture right from scratch till the time it does not it gets delivered to the customer, right? So various machines, and then you have various operations, right? You get into those environment. It felt like a natural extension, right? And it was all about that you suddenly ease into that role and into that
I'll
environment.
stop you here and ask you this question. You say that this choice, this career choice that you made, felt like a natural extension of yourself. But there are many students, many youngsters who find it very difficult to figure out what is out there which is best suited for them. So, how did you figure out that footwear is where you have to be?
See, for me, I think it was my elder brother, right? So he was about to leave the country, and he was deputed and about to work in SEL in Australia. But before, we spent roughly 2 to 3 years, staying together, understanding the whole thing, right? So it was not a conscious choice that it has to be a design and it has to be a thing where I can go ahead and explore. But my core understanding, and he knew it, that it was all about creating something, right? Not from a design perspective, but from a bigger framework kind of setup, right? So I definitely had a guidance coming from him, kind of protection coming in from him. So I never had to think about, what can go wrong, because he was there to guide me all through the parts and all through the journey. But I felt one thing very clearly, that even though you don't have a clear direction going forward, or you don't understand what can go wrong, what can go wrong, right? I think if you want to fail fast, so that you understand
That's
what your
wonderful
calling
piece of
is.
advice.
Yeah. So as you fail fast, you understand that this is not working for me. And in today's world, there is no nobody stopping you from doing anything, right? So you
Indeed.
have that, and you have to basically open your mindset that is not the person sitting in front of you will be deciding what you can do and what you cannot do. I think it's all about you and yourself. And once you find your passion or your calling, you just have to combine that with grit. If both of these two things come together, then I think you can succeed in any part of your life.
That's a great piece of advice. So everybody watching should be paying attention to what Ravi just said. And moving on, I would ask you, we covered that how did the idea generate in your mind about how did you end up being here? Because all your life, all your experiences had actually propelled you towards in this very direction. So next thing that I want to ask is uh, the startup idea and what was this journey like?
So it actually came back to me during all my times. When I used to work with different companies. So I started my career with Tata. I was in China for roughly 4.5, 5 years. Then went on to another company and fashion brand in Shanghai. Over there, I decided to take a break, and went on to complete my masters with a B school in Italy. Had a chance to work with some companies in Italy and in Middle East. Uh, During my whole experience, what I saw was that, number one, nobody can shy away from the fact that fashion is one of the biggest polluter, right? Roughly 10% of carbon dioxide emission or greenhouse emissions come from fashion industry. 10% of industrial water waste, it comes from this industry, right? And roughly, if you see the data in developed country, 85% of the products which people buy gets dumped into landfill within 1 year, and the recycling of footwear is less than 2% worldwide in today's time, right?
Wow.
So we had all those data points, and there was a conscious choice that the customer was making in what to wear, what not to wear. People now check labels a lot, where it is made, how it is made, which conditions the worker works. So it was a kind of multiple data sets, and once you sit together and you connect the dots, you understand where the gap is. So we did a very thorough, deep study about what the product can be, and uh, it cannot be another startup. It cannot be another footwear brand where you just go ahead and you copy few brands and you create a product, right? It has to have a different proposal to the customers, right? That's why we thought about creating something which is natural, something which we deeply believe in, that whatever products we are going to go ahead and produce or design, at any given point of time, 90 to 95% of the composition has to come from bio-based materials, right? So the idea was not to create something which is already existing, something which is based on fossil fuels, but nature has to give you a performance-driven benefit, right? So even our current collection, which is going to get launched in coming 90 days, uh, we have a series of sneakers where we have focused entirely on how to make it better, or at least perform at par as a regular fossil fuel sneaker, right? So it has 20 features and benefits, including the ability to go ahead and customize. So if you see all those data points and you see how the ecosystem is behaving, and we all know that we can write that there's no planet B, and we can write all those quotes, But ultimately, you have to understand that if the source of the product is not coming from the right origin, right? And if you don't make a conscious choice about what to buy, how to buy, from where to buy, I think any startup is going to take a longer time. The period will be longer to go ahead and make a deep full impact, because if you look into the annual production of footwear, it's 20 billion pairs, right? And sustainability is very minute part of that. So it is a start, and we really want to go ahead and create something which actually impacts the planet, the consumers positively, and in longer terms it does shows that there can be positive impact. And because we don't use any food source, so everything comes from a non-food source, so we combine with different raw materials to bring something which performs similar to
Oh,
a
tell
regular
us about
you know.
using the pineapple parts and all. I found that very fascinating. So I think
So
viewers
currently we have an inventory of between 25 and 30 raw materials. We use eucalyptus, we use pineapple leaves, natural rubber, natural cork, rice husk, which is a byproduct of rice production. We have algae, we have mushroom, we use bamboo. We have some raw materials coming in from cactus, and we have spider silk. It's a long process, because we wanted to be very sure that whenever the customers take the product in their hand, they can feel that is a natural extension of themselves, and they're going to have a connection with nature, something which
It's
is not
wonderful.
repelling to your
It's such an
footwear.
exhaustive, curated list of sources that you guys have come up with, which tells the amount of research it must have gone in to identify these sources in the first place. I mean, I cannot, in my wildest of dreams, imagine a sneaker made out of algae. I mean, that's out of the world. And kudos to you guys to be able to figure this out, that this is even possible. So tell us something about that aspect,
If you
this
if you look into
creative
this,
angle of things.
yeah. So if you look into how to make anything work in terms of raw materials, any raw material, if you look into today's perspective, whether it is leather or polyester or mesh, or we talk about algae, or we talk about sugarcane, these raw materials, they need time, and it is very capital intensive. It takes years to go ahead and develop that, right? So what we did was a small startup was to go ahead and partner with the different big factories and big companies who have some allocation of monies for research and development. Then what happens is, because you understand where the raw materials will be used and how it will be used, what kind of strains and what kind of technical details it wants, then it becomes easier because you know the end use. And then you have, so basically what you do is you use the expertise of those big companies, you combine those to your shoemaking skills, and then you come to a conclusion that, yeah, this material can sustain x amount of pressure or x time in terms of production, and you have these beautiful materials coming out. But yes, we did have some support coming in from IIT Chennai. We did had support coming in from companies like Brestchem, a company like Blue. So many different companies, because the reason is everybody in some part of the world, they understand that the current consumption pattern, it cannot continue. It has to change, right? Because if I throw a plastic bottle in Mumbai, it might land up in Delaware, right? It might land up in England, right? So we
That's
have
how
to understand
connected
that
we are, and we
sustainability is
don't
not a
realize.
local problem, right?
Very true, very true. That's the picture. When you start putting it in words, you can imagine the kind of impact it has and the kind of ramifications in the long run. The kind of consumer pattern we are following as of now has
Yeah.
on the planet and on the ecosystem. All right. So, coming back again to your own self and asking this question, that from where we come, generally in our society, there is this idea of finishing your education, finding a stable job and having a stable income, and go into a very traditional way of life. But when you decide, or when you say it out loud, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to start something of my own, a lot of judgments from people around us, and a lot of confusion which is created in our minds. So how did you went around that?
See, I mean, any startup or idea, it cannot also be endless process where you don't see the daylight, right? You need to have some kind of plan where you see what the runway can be, right? So for us, it was not about going ahead and first creating an inventory and then thinking if the customer will buy or not, right? Obviously, because there's a lot of stigma around startups, and coming from background where we are, right? Everybody thinks that a 9 to 5 job or a 9 to 6 job is better than going ahead and experimenting, right? But then the whole thing is it's not just working something that you do believe or don't believe. It's about a combination of various things, right? Number one, which is obviously you have to be sure that you have enough monies to pay your bills, because if the bills don't get paid, then your mind will be distracted in all those different stuff rather than getting focused on your startup, right? So that obviously helps, and the thing is, not always it is a situation where you will be coming out as a winner in a particular decision making, right? You will have so many different approaches to a problem on how to go ahead and approach that. But I think once you understand that idea has a potential, and we verified that by getting pre-orders, right? So in the very first 6 months, when we had a rough prototype ready with us, we did a beta phase testing, right? So customers came from different countries, and suddenly we had 150, $160,000 in terms of revenues in just 30 days, right? Then it was all about, yes, it was all about going ahead and raising funds and speak with different people. I am Cozy Code is currently an investor in the company, and we have six, yes,
Wonderful.
and we have six angel investors who have chipped in. We have interest from 10 venture capital firms who are looking forward to get associated in the Series A fundraise. So it is not just about you have a pile of money and you want to design something and you want to go ahead and create inventory and then think if it will sell or not, right? Because it is coming from the data of the customers and there is a demand in the market. So basically, you culminate all the data points and you take very conscious calls, by keeping all the points in your mind before you go ahead and you take a decision of what it can be and how far you can stretch. When it comes to
The whole
people
difference
thinking
lies
about,
in how you approach it, how you
absolutely yes,
approach your
absolutely yes.
whole
The
business.
idea is to simplify things, and what I generally do is basically go back to the very first basic principles on how to attack a problem. So it can be that sometimes the company might have a bill to pay, but we might focus on something which is currently very urgent, so that all the cash flows become easier to go ahead and manage that. So every day you'll have problems, right? But there has to be one goal where you go ahead and you solve those small problems, you achieve those smaller goals, and then suddenly you have a bigger goal in sight, and then you go ahead and achieve that.
And a very important life lesson right there of how to deal with problems and how to view obstacles actually, and then go about dealing with them. One more question that I would like to ask you is, the startup culture is such that I'm working for one, so I kind of now realize the leadership style. What do you think? There is a traditional leadership style that we have seen over the years. Then with this very new kind of culture, a very new kind of ecosystem, where the whole approach to leadership is also dynamically different from what we have seen traditionally. What is your take on that? How do you think a startup leader, or what are the key skills a startup leader should possess?
See, I think keeping aside all those technical points, I think it's very important to hire people who understand, right, that what actually they are going to be in, right? What kind of ecosystem they're entering. Plus, it makes no sense to hire smart people and then tell them, you have to do this or complete a particular task. You have to have some kind of belief in your team that once something is put on the table, they are going to come up with different approaches to solve that. But obviously you have to be a little bit careful in that terms, because you have to understand, coming in from somebody who is trying to run a company, is whether you have that ability to connect the dots, right? So if it can be a finance, it can be a design, it can be a production, everybody has their own viewpoints. You have to go ahead and respect those viewpoints and think what is right for the overall firm and overall decision making. But it cannot be one person taking a decision, right? Because we have those experts coming into the team, they have their own expertise, and it will make no sense, to go ahead and tell them or micromanage them in terms of what they should be doing every day, right?
That's an important discerning factor that you have shared, and which we often come across in startups which fail to actually leverage all the potential they came with just because of leadership style, which could have been more effective. Let's just put it very kindly out there. So, yeah, that's the reason I asked you that question, because we keep coming across stories where things could have gone a different way, but just because of poor decision making at the
See,
highest
sometimes
level.
you have to be straightforward. You have to be on the point. uh, you know, and it's all about, I told you fail and you fail fast. So you'll obviously fail in hiring people. You will fail in taking decisions. You will fail in, making wrong moves, right? Everything is fine. But the thing is, you will have to have a core team in some time where you can rely upon, right? Somebody has to go ahead and, have to have a focus on the longer goal forever, right? So these people around you, right, they have to be somebody who can achieve those smaller goals, those goals which are potentially very efficient for your longer term goal. But
Right.
you need to have a team definitely who can go ahead and implement that. And I don't foresee a single company where one person can run the whole whole org. It will be very difficult, and
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
Even in the biggest of the companies, it is not possible that one person would be doing everything from signing checks to taking capital investment decisions. It is very difficult. So moving on
And the
to
whole idea is to create another leader, right? So who can replace you
exactly,
sometime.
exactly. I was coming to that because and a setup has to function even without you, and that
Yes,
only tells how successful it was to begin with.
absolutely. Yeah. I
So
mean, your job is just to create a framework, just to create a an architect, right, on how everything is going to fall in place. And once you do that correctly with the right set of people, it's going to go in an autopilot mode.
Can you share with us a little more about any information regarding the kind of impact your startup is creating out there in the community, or any success stories, or any feedback that you have received from customers which have been really great and have motivated you to continue on this path with much more vigor and dedication? Yeah.
So initially we didn't went ahead and spread the name in the ecosystem, because we were very focused on what the product should be. Even the beta phase trial was just limited to 1,700 customers, because we ran short of the materials, right? So as and when we speak, we have customers who have given feedback, and the feedback has been quite positive, not in just terms of what the product can offer or what the drawbacks are, but what the company can be. See, we are not just trying to sell a shoe, we are trying to build a community, right? A community where you feel a sense of
Wonderfully
belonging,
put.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, if you look into
And
companies
changing
like,
mindsets, if I may add to
uh,
that.
yeah. So, customers who will be, your early adopters, they are going to be the one who will be your brand ambassadors in future. Right? So, as and when we speak, we were fortunate enough to represent the company in the Dubai Expo. We were invited by the Indian government.
I
We are
wanted to
also going
ask you
to,
about your experience there. Yes, please go ahead.
yeah, and we had roughly 15,000 people coming into the booth and sharing experiences. They came from different parts of the world. We're also going to represent the Indian delegation in Finland in the month of November. Apart from that, there has been a massive interest from customers, from collaborators, from people who are prominent in their industries to do some kind of collaboration so that this reaches to a bigger scale, a bigger market, and because it cannot make a sustainable or a deep impact if we are limited to a particular country or to a particular state or to a particular size. So we believe that this community is going to be a very important and is going to play a very massive role in what the bigger impact can be, right? Because it's not just about selling the products by making sustainable product, but also once they use it, what happens to it, right? So both the pre-sales and the post-sales are very very important in how you deal with it. What kind of things or resources or machinery or any process it will require to you know successfully disintegrate the whole thing into the nature. So
But
that
coming here, I would also like to ask you about, since you're saying it, the community has to play such an integral part in taking this movement forward. So, on that note, I want to ask you about the brand ambassador you have chosen. Tell us something about that because that is again an unconventional choice.
so we were fortunate enough to have Mr. Kamita Sherpa as our brand ambassador. We have already onboarded him. He's the guy who has climbed Everest 26 times, right? And nobody understands that kind of ecosystem if you are going to Everest every year. So he has seen the kind of dump yards there are there on Everest in
Exactly, and we have
base camp
often
one,
come
base camp two.
across news reports about regarding the same, the
Absolutely,
kind
and
of
now
garbage dumping.
yes, even the micro polyester there now is everywhere, including a women's womb, right? So it is a massive challenge, and he being somebody who has seen that part of earth change, I think he can bring in something which is very credible to the table, and he can spread that story to the whole ecosystem of his and ours, that this challenge is real, right? This threat is real, and if we don't get to change our habits and the way we consume fashion, I think the results will be very deadly. So we always wanted to have a
As an outsider, what I also feel when I hear you speak about your choice of brand ambassador is again, this is a shift from choosing not just in alignment with what you have chosen to pursue in terms of your business model, but also, moving away from the popular notion of picking up a celebrity face and then just using them. You have chosen a person who has deep understanding of this whole idea, and probably would be coming with a lot of belief in what you're doing, and that would translate into how it would go out in the community. So that's
yeah.
what
I
I
think
wanted to add.
it will be very important to have a credible story, somebody who has weathered that many times. I think he'll bring a lot of authenticity into the whole ecosystem of TerraX.
So we got disconnected in between. So we are continuing the conversation again. So what I was asking was, what do you think are the obstacles that we face both at the business level and at individual consumer level, which makes us adopt sustainability more, we find it difficult to do that.
I mean, you'll have to come in from the customer's viewpoint, right?
Both
Because
from the business viewpoint for you,
yes,
and as from the customer viewpoint also, what makes it difficult for all of us to actually adopt sustainability in our everyday lives.
right. So I mean, whenever you create any product, it has to come from a customer's viewpoint, right? What problems you're solving for the customers, right? Now, if you look into the footwear industry, if I just talk about India, right, we have 1.3 billion population, and still, if the price point, if you look into the products, I think majority it will be between right from your slippers, it comes from right from 199 rupees till the time you go till 2,000 rupees, 2,500 rupees. That's the price point where everybody wants to go ahead and connect, right? And to bring any product that is going to have a bigger or meaningful or a significant impact into the market, you have to bring it to not just at a level where it creates some kind of impact into the whole ecosystem, but also it should be in a bracket where a common person, right, can go ahead and buy. If I make a shoe which is 16,000 rupees and I just we're able to sell 1,000 to some pairs, it won't make a massive impact, right? And everything will come into place once we achieve economies of scale, right? So once you go ahead and start selling it, and we plan to do that in coming between 18 and 20 months, where we achieve significant volumes where the prices come down, so that an average earning person or somebody who wants to actually move in from that 1,500 rupees polyester shoe to, let's say, a 2,000 rupees sustainable shoe has that kind of flexibility, right? So we do have that in our mind, and we have been creating products or materials which can fall into that bracket. But the major issue comes once you think about how to scale it up, right? You have a very new product where the customers are about to go ahead and buy it for the very first time, experiment with it. But the whole portfolio has to be as such where we have different and diverse products, again made from similar raw materials, but not just affordable to somebody who can spend 6,500 rupees or 7,000 rupees, but also somebody who wants to go ahead and spend 1,500 rupees. So till the time you don't hit all those demographics and all those customer segments, it's going to be a very minimal impact in terms of what we started this whole brand for. So in terms of our limitations, obviously constraint will be in terms of what can be done, where can be done. Plus, the technology that we have currently in India is not suited to go ahead and create new raw materials so fast as it is available in European countries. So with time and with scale, we can bring all those tech to India, so that we have something which is available and made in India, and so that we don't have to go ahead and basically greenwash the customers. That even though we are using plastic-based products, we are writing it's recycled, right? So everything has to be traced down to the origin of the source, and yet affordable and giving you right features and benefits. So there has to be a sync on what we're trying to project and what the customers are actually willing to pay for.
Great. Yes. So yeah, very rightly put. Those cost and scale are two things to consider before we can look at it making a significant impact on the smallest of buyers. So,
Absolutely.
And I would like to ask you, how do you envision and what aspirations you have for your startup and for your business in the next coming up years?
Yeah, so as we speak, we have already a small satellite office in US. We are going to go ahead and set up a small, research and development center in Barcelona, and by October, November. See, it cannot be a company which is demographically located to a particular, location, right? It has to be a company where it basically, engages with different customers. Customers in Europe and US today, they definitely have a better understanding and better grip of what sustainability can be, and they are willing to pay a little bit of more premium as compared to us here in South Asia or Asia Pacific region, right? So as somebody who has to basically look into what the runway should be, whether it is 18 months or 24 months into the market, what we are looking forward to is that every year there has to be a new demography or a new place where we go ahead and we launch. We have great interest coming in from Middle East, distributors showing interest, and we have interest coming in from Europe where they want to go ahead and expand the product portfolio. But we really want to be true to our brand and not just get washed away in terms of what and how big the company can be. The story and the impact has to be positive, and even though the community and whosoever is coming together to go ahead and buy TerraX or coming to work with us, they should feel that positive change. And if these initial adopters, either as employee or any stakeholder coming and associating with us, they have to feel this positive impact that we're trying to build in. And with due time, I think once we have this complete launch, into the market, we are fairly sure that the company can be somewhere between 15 and 20 million dollars in terms of revenue in coming 4 to 5 years.
That's wonderful.
Obviously, with funds and with everything else tied up, we can grow exponentially. But we have chosen a very conscious way of doing business. There are brands which are doing great, like Allbirds. You have Veja, you have Patagonia, right? Which obviously keep environment as a very important place. For us, Earth comes first, and we are going to go ahead and create products or anything else which will always keep Earth first. So the idea is not about scaling it up, giving huge discounts and not putting a product out there which does not performs to what it claims to be. We want to be very authentic in what we preach, and we want to be very authentic in what the product does actually once a customer wears it. So it will take time, and it's not going to be an easy journey, but there's a conscious shift, as I spoke, in the customer's behavior, and people, they are understanding what impact it will be, it can have into the whole scenario. So with a small setup like ours, we are definitely going to go ahead and expand our reach to various geographies, but also bring together customers who feel that this is an ecosystem or this community where they belong to.
Where they want to also, yes, like you said, belong. So Earth first, that's a very important takeaway from what you said, and a lesson for all the other people who want to do something in this particular area, or as individuals even, putting Earth first. Wonderful. And any advice to the young generation who is looking forward to starting something of their own? Any advice for them?
I mean, it all comes to everybody's or individual's perspective on what their future can be, right? But I think it worked for me. It was to go ahead and take risks, calculative risks, fail and fail fast, in different scenarios. Experience, different set of people, different set of mindset, different localities, different geographies. It gives you a different and a wider perspective. And once you, have that kind of, that passion coming in, or that goal, right? Or where you foresee yourself to be, or what you can be, right? It just has to combine together with grit. I think with being focused on what you want to achieve. I think uh, whatever goal or whatever aim you have in your mind, whether it's a startup or sort of any kind, right, is going to help you out. But it's parallelly very important to keep tab of numbers, because sometimes passion and numbers don't match. So you'll have to be very careful on that as well. Uh, and then you have to build a strong team together. Don't try to do it alone. You might succeed, but chances of getting success is much more higher when you have a right team right beside you.
Wonderfully put. So, anybody particularly that you look up to for inspiration and somebody who motivates you?
In 2008 9 in China, I was fortunate to see and listen to Steve Jobs in Shanghai. Yeah, so I didn't know him before, but in the morning, 5:30, there was a long queue, right, leading to Apple Store. And it was my very first job. I didn't knew what Apple was. So I believe it was some kind of clothing or some kind of fashion store, but roughly 3.5 kilometers long line leading to a store in Shanghai. And this gentleman was right there, and he was unveiling and explaining the product to all the customers. The kind of detailing he was going into and the kind of focus he has, it had a deep impact on me. And slowly, once you start studying about him or listening to his character, and you have many more inspirations. There are a lot of people who are doing so much amazing job in this sector.
He was charismatic even when you would watch him on screen. I'm sure, having meeting him and seeing him in person must have been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I mean, right from what he used to think and how he used to think, people, they're great people, all around us, people who are doing, substantially, bigger things. But I think he did something different. I think he created something which was which was incredible in terms of what the product can be. And then you have people like Bill Gates. You have people
technological
like,
legacy that he created
yes,
is something that generations would remember.
yes. And then you have people like Bezos, and you have Musk. So there are so many people out there, and there are so many positive changes. I think. There has to be calling, and it comes with experience. Sometimes it comes with with education. Sometimes it comes with traveling. Sometimes it can come from anywhere, right? And
You speak about calling. So can I ask you this, that are you a spiritual person? Do you believe in being spiritual, or any religious solace that you draw from you know about that aspect of
yeah,
things?
sometimes I do when we don't have funds in the bank accounts. At that time, you just think about God, that you have done your bid, and some angel or the VC has to come in and fund you out. Yeah, I mean, there are dark times. It's not an easy thing. It's very difficult to keep a smiling face all the time. It's a very, very challenging task. And it's not just you have to take care of your team also, right? They have to pay the bills. Everybody has to pay the bills in the month end, right? So it's not just you, and there are dark times, and sometimes what happens is you just sit quietly in the morning and you think about how beautiful everything else is, how calm everything else is, but inside your head you have thousands of questions, thousands of decision making, right? At that time, sometimes it actually helps me that you just sit down, you think about that, and you let your mind roam, right? For me, that kind of thing helps a lot, because that helps me to filter out what is important, what is urgent and important, right? And what should be done so that this keeps going on.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what is your comfort food and stress busting activity?
I generally, do plantation. I love working with plants. But from the time you sow the seeds and you see them growing, it gives a very pleasurable moments all through the time. Like, it's very soothing as well. In food, I think food is not something which I really am fussy about
I hear you're a
because
good cook, and I'm still to get a taste of it. But then I believe
the
I believe
perspective
whatever
of
has been
food
spoken to
actually
me. Yes.
the perspective of food changed when I was working in China, right? You have your own taste, and suddenly you are in a city and a country where the food is completely different, right? So, we had this option from Tata to go ahead and live in, their locality and their residences and their, apartments. But I chose to live in workers' dormitory, right? Just
So
to
I
feel
remember
how
we
the
talking
workers live.
about that story, and that's
Yeah.
a wonderful story. You should speak about it.
So how they lived and what they ate. So, with 3,000 workers working around, I was the only one Indian who was living with them. And this is the time when I started, learning about food. Right? Food for Chinese is very important, right? And once you have something on your plate, it's something which they believe is that is coming from the God, and they are working for it. So that changed a lot. So obviously, when you're young and in your family, you can be fussy about what you like, what you don't like. But working in China, it changed my perspective about food. Anything comes to the plate is fine. It's good to have.
I think that advice is not just for our children, but also for a lot of youngsters out there who take the food for granted when they're living at home with their parents. Wonderful, good piece of advice. And to sum it up, it was wonderful talking to you. Ravi is, I've known him personally, so I know he's a great father. He's a great leader, and he's a loving husband. And to round it up, what would you like to say to all those people who would be watching this?
I think on this journey that we started, it cannot be done alone, right? Everybody has to do some bit in terms of preserving the nation. We are trying our bit through fashion because it's one of the most integral part of all human beings on how we believe, how we look, and how it performs. So, you know, the overall impact on what we will be doing and what we'll be leaving on the planet Earth has to be minimal, and we are trying to do our bit in that part. And hopefully, once we launch our ideas, our belief, and our core value systems, it will reflect in the product and the services that we're going to offer. Uh, so, together, I think we can, and we can make a major impact.
Together we can. What a beautiful line to sum this up and end this up with. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Ravi, for sharing your time with us and telling us this wonderful story of not just your startup, but just your entire perspective on everything. And yes, together we can, and Earth first. So those are important takeaways from this interview. I hope everybody watching would find their own inspirations from your story. Thank you so much.
I hope you liked this episode. It certainly was an enlightening conversation. Earth first, such a beautiful concept. I hope Ravi's journey would be inspiring to a lot of people watching. If you want to know more such uplifting stories and learn more about innovators, disruptors who are working tirelessly to make our planet a better place to live in, please stick around, subscribe to the channel, and keep supporting us. So this is me signing off. Goodbye and take care of yourselves.